The smoke hit her lungs before the heat did, and by then it was already too late to run. Fiona Voss had been working the line at Maison Argentée for 6 months, and in that time she had learned 3 things. Never trust a gas burner with a faulty valve, never underestimate how fast clarified butter could ignite, and never, ever look directly through the pass at the dining room when the man with the white hair was watching. Tonight, she had broken all 3 rules. The explosion came from somewhere behind the grill station, a boom that knocked her sideways into the prep counter. Flames crawled up the wall where the grease traps were, faster than physics should allow, and suddenly the whole kitchen was screaming. She grabbed for the fire extinguisher mounted near her station, but someone else got there first, yanking it off the wall and spraying foam in the wrong direction. The ventilation system roared, but it only fed the flames. Black smoke poured from everywhere at once. Her chef jacket was soaked with something, stock or wine, and the heat made it steam against her skin. She could not see the door. She could not see anything except orange light and the shapes of her coworkers stumbling past her toward where the exit should have been. Her eyes burned. She dropped low, trying to remember what they had said in the safety training she had slept through, and crawled toward the cold storage. Maybe there was another way out through the back hallway. Maybe the walk-in would buy her time. The tile was slick under her palms and something glass shattered near her head. She flinched and kept moving. Then someone lifted her, not pulled, lifted. Arms around her ribs, effortless, and she was off the ground and moving fast through smoke that should have choked them both. She tried to see his face, but her eyes were streaming, and all she got was an impression of pale skin and the smell of something cold, like winter air, cutting through the smoke. The heat did not touch them. It should have. The kitchen was an inferno now, but she felt only the chill coming off the person carrying her. They passed through the main blaze, she was sure of it. She saw the flames on both sides, but nothing burned. Then they were outside in the alley and he was setting her down on the asphalt, gently, still holding her upright because her legs were not working. She coughed until she gagged, her lungs trying to turn themselves inside out. And when she finally looked up, he was kneeling beside her, one hand still on her shoulder. White hair, white skin, dark eyes that did not blink. She knew him, not his name, but his face. He came in twice a week, always alone, always ordered the lamb and a glass of the 1998 Bordeaux, and always sat at the table closest to the pass where he could see into the kitchen. She had noticed him watching her. It should have been creepy, but it was not. It was something else. Something that made her check her reflection in the walk-in door before service and tie her bandana a little neater. "You are hurt," he said. His voice was quiet, accented, old-world European, but she could not place it. "I'm fine." She was not fine. Her hands were shaking and her throat felt like she had swallowed glass. "Thank you. You did not have to." "I did." Sirens now, fire trucks and ambulances converging on the restaurant. The front entrance was chaos, people spilling out onto the street, waitstaff still in their aprons, diners in evening gowns coughing into napkins. She tried to stand, and he stood with her, his hand moving to her elbow, steadying her. She realized he was not letting go. "I should check on the others," she said. "You will. First you will let them see to your lungs." "I am fine," she said again. But even as she said it, a paramedic was jogging toward them, kit in hand, already barking questions she did not have the breath to answer. The man with the white hair stepped back, but only far enough to let the paramedic work. He did not leave. When they loaded her into the ambulance to check her oxygen levels, he climbed in after her. When the paramedic told him only family was allowed, he said, "I am staying," in a tone that ended the conversation. She sat on the bench inside the ambulance, an oxygen mask over her face, and watched him. He stood near the door, perfectly still, his hands loose at his sides. He wore a black suit, tailored, no tie, no soot on him, no smoke smell. She had seen him walk through fire and he looked like he had just stepped out of a boardroom. "What is your name?" she asked. Her voice was muffled by the mask. He tilted his head slightly. "Lucien." "Lucien," she tested it. It fit him. "I'm Fiona." "I know. That should have been creepy too. It was not." The paramedic finished his checks, told her she was lucky, told her to follow up with her doctor if she had any trouble breathing, and then he was gone, off to check the next patient. The ambulance doors stayed open, and the noise of the scene poured in. Firefighters shouting, radio chatter. Somewhere a woman was crying. Fiona pulled the mask off and set it aside. "You saved my life," she said. Lucien did not answer. He was looking past her toward the restaurant, his expression unreadable. "How did you do that?" she pressed. "The fire, it should have—" "You need rest," he said. "I will take you home." "I can get myself home." "You will not." She should have argued. She was an adult. She did not need some stranger deciding what she would and would not do. But the truth was, her legs still felt like jelly, and the thought of navigating the subway right now made her want to cry. So she nodded. He helped her down from the ambulance, and they walked past the fire line, past the police tape, past the knot of her co-workers being interviewed by investigators. Her sous chef caught her eye and mouthed, "Are you okay?" And she nodded. She would text him later. Right now, she just wanted to be somewhere that did not smell like smoke. Lucien led her to a car parked 2 blocks down, a black sedan that looked like it cost more than she made in a year. He opened the passenger door for her and waited until she was seated before closing it and walking around to the driver's side. The interior smelled like leather and something faintly herbal, rosemary maybe. He started the engine and pulled into traffic without asking for her address. "You do not know where I live," she said. "Tell me." She did. He drove in silence, navigating the city streets with the ease of someone who had been here a long time. She leaned her head against the window and watched the lights blur past. Her apartment was in Brooklyn, a 4th-floor walk-up she shared with 2 roommates who were never home. It took 40 minutes to get there, and Lucien did not speak once. She kept glancing at him, trying to make sense of what had happened, trying to square the man who had carried her through fire with the quiet diner who always left exact change and never made small talk. When they pulled up outside her building, she reached for the door handle and found his hand on her wrist, light but firm. "Wait," he said. "For what?" "I will see you inside." "That is really not necessary." "It is." She did not have the energy to argue. He got out, came around, opened her door. She climbed the stairs slowly, her legs protesting every step, and he followed 2 steps behind. When they reached her door, she dug her keys out of her pocket and unlocked it, then turned to face him. "Oh, thank you," she said, "for everything. I do not know how to—" "You do not need to thank me." "I do, though. You did not have to come into that kitchen. You did not have to—" "I did," he said again. His eyes were very dark, almost black in the dim hallway light. "I will return tomorrow to check on you." "You do not have to do that." "I will." And then he was gone, back down the stairs, moving so quietly she did not hear his footsteps. She stood in her doorway for a long moment, staring at the empty stairwell, before finally going inside and locking the door behind her. She showered for 30 minutes, scrubbing the smoke smell out of her hair, out of her skin, watching black water spiral down the drain. When she finally got out, she checked her phone and found 23 missed messages, her co-workers asking if she was okay. Her mother, somehow already informed, demanding she call immediately. Her sous chef saying the investigators wanted to talk to everyone tomorrow, that the fire was being treated as suspicious. She answered a few texts, called her mother, and lied about how fine she was, then collapsed into bed. She dreamed about fire. She dreamed about pale hands pulling her up out of the smoke. She woke at 3 a.m, gasping, her lungs seizing, and had to sit up and breathe slowly until the panic passed. When she finally fell back asleep, the sun was starting to rise. She woke again at noon to someone knocking on her door. For a moment she thought it was a dream, then the knock came again, firmer. She dragged herself out of bed, pulled on a hoodie over her tank top, and shuffled to the door. Through the peephole she saw white hair. Lucien. She opened the door. He stood in the hallway holding a bag from the bakery 3 blocks over, the good one that made the almond croissants she loved. "You said you would check on me," she said. Her voice was hoarse. "I did." "It is noon. You needed rest." She should not let him in. She did not know him. But he had saved her life, and he was holding pastries, and she was so tired of being sensible all the time. She stepped back, and he came inside, moving past her into the small living room. He set the bag on the kitchen counter and turned to look at her. "You did not sleep well," he said. It was not a question. "How do you know?" "I can see it." She touched her face self-consciously. She probably looked like hell. "I had nightmares. That is normal. You sound like you know." "I do." She wanted to ask how, wanted to ask 100 things, but instead, she just moved to the counter and opened the bakery bag. 2 almond croissants, still warm. Her favorite. How did you know I liked these? I have seen you eat them. When? You come to that bakery Saturday mornings. You sit in the window and read. She stared at him. Are you following me? No. Then how? I notice things. That should have set off alarms. Instead, it made something warm unfold in her chest, something dangerous. She pulled out one of the croissants and bit into it. Butter and almond paste flooded her mouth, and for a moment she forgot to be suspicious. Thank you. You're welcome. They stood there in her kitchen, her eating, him watching, and the silence was not awkward. It was full. She had never met anyone who could be quiet the way he was quiet, like he did not need to fill the space with words to justify being there. The fire, she said finally. My sous chef said it was suspicious. It was arson. How do you know? I know. That is not an answer. It is the answer I can give you now. She set the croissant down. What does that mean? He moved closer, just one step, but it closed the distance between them in a way that made her pulse jump. It means there are things you do not yet understand, things I will tell you when it is safe to do so. For now, trust that I will keep you safe. I do not need keeping safe. You do. You are very sure of yourself. I'm very sure of what I know. She should have been angry. She should have told him to leave, to stop talking in riddles, to stop acting like he had some claim on her safety. Instead, she asked, Why do you care? His expression shifted, something almost vulnerable crossing his face before he smoothed it away. Because I have watched you for weeks. Because you move through that kitchen like it is a dance. Because you laugh when the orders stack up and everyone else is panicking. Because when you taste something, you close your eyes as if the flavor is the only thing in the world that matters. He paused. Because when the fire started, my only thought was getting to you. Her breath caught. You do not know me. I know enough. That is insane. Perhaps. She should have been afraid. She should have seen the red flags, the obsessive behavior, the way he spoke like he had already decided she was his to protect. But all she felt was the warmth spreading through her chest, the certainty that this strange man with his quiet voice and his impossible rescue was telling the truth. The investigators want to talk to me tomorrow, she said. I will go with you. You do not have to, sir, I will. She wanted to argue, but she was tired of arguing, tired of pretending she did not want him there. So she just nodded and finished her croissant and let him sit on her couch while she made coffee. And when he finally left an hour later, she stood at the window and watched him walk down the street until he disappeared around the corner. That night, she dreamed about him instead of the fire. The next morning, they met outside the restaurant. The building was a blackened shell, yellow tape everywhere, the smell of burnt wood and chemicals heavy in the air. A small crowd had gathered across the street, gawkers with their phones out, and Fiona felt a spike of anger looking at them. This had been her place. Her kitchen. 6 months of learning every station, earning the respect of the sous chef, finally being trusted with the good cuts of meat. Gone. Lucien appeared beside her without a sound. She was getting used to that, the way he moved like he was part of the shadows. They are inside, he said, nodding toward the restaurant. Who? The investigators. They went in through the side entrance, the one the staff used. The dining room was gutted, tables overturned, the ceiling caved in places. But it was the kitchen that hurt to look at. Her station was a twisted ruin of metal and ash. The walk-in door hung off its hinges. Everything she had worked with, everything she had touched, was destroyed. A man in a suit approached them, badge clipped to his belt. Fiona Voss? Yes? I'm Detective Brennan. I need to ask you some questions about the night of the fire. She nodded. Lucien stayed at her side, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The detective noticed but did not comment. He led them to a corner of the dining room that was mostly intact and pulled out a chair for her. She sat. Lucien did not. Can you walk me through your evening? Brennan asked. Start from the beginning of your shift. She did. She told him about prep, about the orders that had come in, about the moment the explosion happened. She told him about the smoke and the heat and the way she could not find the exit. She did not tell him about Lucien carrying her through fire that should have killed them both. That part felt private, impossible to explain. "Did you notice anything unusual before the fire started?" Brennan asked. "Anyone who did not belong in the kitchen? Any equipment malfunctioning?" She started to say no, then stopped. "Wait, what is it?" "There was someone. Not in the kitchen, but I saw him earlier in the evening. He came in through the loading dock." Brennan leaned forward. "Can you describe him?" "Tall, dark hair. He was wearing a delivery uniform, but it did not fit right, like it was borrowed. I only saw him for a second because I was carrying a stock pot to the stove. But I remember thinking it was weird because we were not expecting any deliveries that late." "What time was this?" "Maybe 7:30, right before the dinner rush." Brennan wrote that down. "Anything else? Any detail, no matter how small?" She closed her eyes, trying to pull the memory into focus. His hands. He was carrying something, a bag or a case, and his hands were clean. Too clean. "I remember noticing because everyone who works around a kitchen has cuts and burns and stains, but his hands looked like he had never worked a day in his life." "Good," Brennan said. "That is good. Anything else?" She shook her head. "I wish I could remember more." "You have given us more than most." He stood. "If you think of anything else, call me." He handed her a card. She took it. Lucien put his hand on her lower back, a gentle pressure, and guided her toward the exit. They were almost outside when a voice called out behind them. "Lucien Zephyrian!" They both turned. A woman stood in the ruined doorway of the kitchen, older, maybe 60, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a dark coat despite the heat, and her eyes were the same black Fiona had seen in Lucien's. "Seraphine," Lucien said. His voice was colder than Fiona had ever heard it. "You have been careless," the woman said. She looked at Fiona, then back at Lucien. "Taking her from the fire in full view of witnesses, did you think no one would notice? I thought saving her life mattered more than discretion. And now you have brought her into this. Do you understand what you have done?" "I understand perfectly." Seraphine shook her head. "The council will hear of it." "Let them." The woman's expression tightened. Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows at the back of the building. Fiona watched her go, her mind racing. "Who is that?" she asked. "Someone I used to know." "She knew your full name. She knows you." Lucien did not answer. He steered her outside, and they walked half a block before she dug her heels in and stopped. "You need to tell me what is going on," she said. Who was she? What did she mean about the fire and witnesses in a council? "Not here." "Then where?" He looked at her for a long moment, something like resignation in his eyes. "My home. I will show you, but once you know, there is no going back to ignorance. Do you understand?" She did not understand at all. But she nodded anyway. His home was not in the city. They drove for an hour north along the river until the buildings gave way to trees and the road narrowed to 2 lanes. She watched the landscape change and tried not to think about the fact that she was alone with a man she barely knew, driving to a location no one else knew about. Everything about this was a terrible idea. She did not care. "How long have you lived out here?" she asked. "A long time." "How long's a long time?" "Longer than you would believe." She let that sit. They turned off the main road onto a private drive, gravel crunching under the tires, and then the trees opened up and she saw the house. Except house was the wrong word. It was a mansion, old stone and dark wood, Gothic arches and leaded windows that caught the afternoon light and turned it cold. It looked like something out of a period drama, impossible and beautiful and faintly menacing. "This is where you live?" she asked. "Yes." "Alone?" "Mostly." He parked in front of the entrance and came around to open her door. She got out slowly, staring up at the building. It was 3 stories tall, ivy climbing the walls, gargoyles perched on the corners of the roof. A fountain stood in the center of the circular drive, the water black and still. "Come inside," Lucien said. She followed him up the steps and through the heavy front door. The interior was just as dramatic as the exterior. High ceilings, dark wood paneling, candelabras that looked like they belonged in a cathedral. But it was not dusty or neglected. Everything was polished, cared for, lived in. He led her through a series of hallways to a library, shelves packed with books from floor to ceiling, a fireplace at one end with 2 leather chairs arranged in front of it. He gestured for her to sit. She did. He stayed standing. "What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible," he said, "but I need you to listen until the end." "Okay?" "I'm not human, Fiona," she blinked. "What?" "I'm a vampire." The word hung in the air between them. She waited for him to laugh, to tell her it was a joke, but his expression did not change. He was serious. "A vampire," she repeated. "Yes." "Like fangs and blood and—" "Yes." She should have laughed. She should have gotten up and left. But she thought about the way he had carried her through fire without burning, the way his skin was cold even in the heat, the way he moved without sound, the way that woman, Seraphine, had looked at him like he was something other. And she thought about the certainty she had felt, standing in her kitchen yesterday, that he was telling the truth. "Prove it," she said. He moved so fast she did not see it. One moment he was standing across the room, the next he was beside her chair, crouched down so they were eye level. His eyes had changed, the black bleeding into red, and when he opened his mouth she saw the fangs. She should have screamed. She did not. She reached out slowly and touched his face. His skin was cold and smooth, like marble. Real. "How old are you?" she whispered. 563 years. Jesus, not quite. That startled a laugh out of her. He smiled just a little, and the red faded from his eyes. He stood and moved back to a respectful distance. "The fire," he said. "It was arson. It was set to cover the theft of something from the restaurant's cellar." "The wine cellar? What could be worth burning the whole place down?" "Not wine, not exactly." He paused. "There are certain bottles that are kept for patrons like myself. Blood wine. Very old, very rare, mixed with human viticulture centuries ago. The bottle that was stolen belonged to a rival of mine. Its theft is a violation of old laws, an insult." "Wait, you are saying someone burned down the restaurant to steal vampire blood wine?" "Yes." "And the person you think did it is a rival of yours?" "I know who did it. I do not yet have proof." She leaned back in the chair, trying to process. "Why would your rival steal his own bottle?" "Because it ties him to the location, because possession of it outside the proper channels is grounds for the council to strip his title and his lands. He was going to use it against me, claim I had taken it to weaken him. Instead, someone else took it first, someone he hired who now has leverage over him." "This is insane. This is my world, and you are dragging me into it. You are already in it." His voice was quiet. "You saw the man who started the fire. You can identify him. That makes you a target." "Why would anyone care what I saw?" "Because if you testify, if you give the investigators enough to find him, he will talk to save himself. And when he talks, he will implicate his employer. My rival will not allow that." The weight of it settled on her, heavy and cold. "You are saying he's going to come after me?" "He will try. I will not let him succeed." "How can you stop him?" "Because I am the vampire king of this region, and you are under my protection. No one will touch you." The way he said it, the absolute certainty, should have sounded arrogant. Instead, it sounded like a fact, immutable and true. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You do not know me. You do not owe me anything." He crossed the room and knelt in front of her again, his hands resting on the arms of her chair, caging her in without touching her. "I told you yesterday, I have watched you. I have wanted you. From the first night I saw you in that kitchen, I have wanted you, and when the fire started, the thought of losing you was unbearable. So no, I do not owe you anything, but I choose this. I choose you." Her heart was pounding. "You do not even know me." "Then let me." She looked at him, this impossible man who was not a man at all, and felt something click into place, the warmth in her chest that had been there since he carried her out of the fire, the certainty that he was telling the truth, the way she had thought about him every moment since. "I'm falling for you," she said. The words came out before she could stop them. "I do not understand it, and it is probably a terrible idea, but I am." "It is not a terrible idea. You are a vampire." "Yes." "And a king." "Yes." "And I'm a line cook from Brooklyn." "You are extraordinary," she laughed, shaky. "You are insane." "Perhaps." He reached up slowly and tucked a piece of hair behind her ear. His fingers were cold but gentle. "But I will keep you safe, and I will find the one who did this. And when it is over, if you still want me, I will be yours. I already want you. Then stay with me, here, until it is safe." She should have said no. She had a life, a job, or at least she used to have a job. She had friends and an apartment and a whole existence that did not involve vampires and blood wine and centuries-old rivalries. But the truth was, she did not want to go back to that. She wanted this, wanted him. "Okay," she said. He kissed her. It was soft, careful, like he was afraid of breaking her. She kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, and felt his arms come around her, lifting her out of the chair. He carried her to the couch by the fireplace and sat down with her in his lap, and they stayed like that for a long time, kissing, slow and deep, his hands in her hair, her heart racing against his stillness. When they finally broke apart, she was breathless and he was smiling. "Stay tonight," he said. "Okay. And tomorrow." "Okay. And as long as you need." "Okay." He kissed her forehead. "I will show you to your room. I thought I was staying with you." "You will, but you should have your own space in case you need it." She did not think she would need it, but she let him lead her upstairs to a guest room that was bigger than her entire apartment. There was a 4-poster bed with dark curtains, a window that overlooked the grounds, a bathroom with a clawfoot tub. He told her to rest, to settle in, and that he would be downstairs if she needed him. Then he left her alone. She sat on the bed and pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls from her sous chef. She called him back. "Fiona, thank God, I've been trying to reach you." "Sorry, it has been a weird couple of days." "Are you okay? Really?" "I am okay. I'm staying with a friend for a little while." "Good. Listen, the owners are talking about reopening in a few months. New location, same concept. They want to keep the team together. Are you in?" She thought about the kitchen, the rhythm of service, the satisfaction of a perfectly seared piece of fish. She thought about Lucien and his quiet voice, and the way he looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered. "I am in," she said, "but I might have some conditions." Her sous chef laughed. "Of course you do. We can talk details later. Just stay safe, okay?" "I will." She hung up and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Her life had turned upside down in the span of 48 hours. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt alive, more awake than she had been in years. That night she ate dinner with Lucien in a dining room that could have seated 30. He had cooked for her, which was both charming and surreal. The meal was simple, pasta with brown butter and sage, a salad, bread that was still warm. He sat across from her and watched her eat. "You're not eating," she said. "I do not eat food." "Right, blood." "Yes." "Do you need to?" She gestured vaguely. "I mean, are you hungry?" "I'm always hungry, but I'm in control. Would it help if I—" She stopped, not sure how to offer. "No." His voice was firm. "Not yet, not until you are ready and understand what it means." "What does it mean?" "It means a bond, deeper than you can imagine. I will not take that from you lightly." She nodded, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. They finished dinner in silence, comfortable and charged all at once. Afterward, he showed her the grounds, the gardens that stretched out behind the house, the old stone walls that marked the property line. The moon was full and bright, and in its light, everything looked silver and strange. "How long have you lived here?" she asked. "I built this house 200 years ago. It has been my seat ever since." "Your seat?" "The center of my territory, where the council meets, where disputes are settled." "How many vampires are in your territory?" 143 at last count. That's a lot. It is a responsibility. They walked in silence for a while, following a path that led to a fountain at the center of the garden. The water was still, reflecting the sky. "The rival you mentioned," she said. "What is his name?" Victor. Victor Draven. He has held the Western Territories for 300 years. He believes he should be king." "Why is not he?" "Because he is reckless and cruel, and the council would not support him. So he undermines me in small ways. The blood wine was meant to be the final insult. He would accuse me of theft, demand a trial, and use the chaos to seize control. But someone stole it first." "Yes. And now I have an opportunity. If I can prove he hired the arsonist, the council will strip him of his titles. The Western Territories will be folded into mine. You want more power? I want him gone. He is dangerous, Fiona, not just to me, but to humans. He does not abide by the old laws. He kills carelessly. If he ever gained control, the truce between our kinds would collapse. She shivered despite the warm night air. And you think he will come after me because I can identify the arsonist? I'm certain of it. Then we need to find the arsonist first. We? I'm not going to sit around and wait to be a victim, Lucien. If I can help, I will. He looked at her for a long moment, something like pride in his expression. You're brave. I'm terrified, but I'm also angry. That restaurant was my dream, and some asshole burned it down for a bottle of wine. Then we will find him. They went back inside, and he pulled out maps, records, lists of names she did not recognize. He explained the hierarchy of his world, the council and the territories and the laws that had kept the peace for centuries. She listened, asked questions, and slowly started to understand the shape of his life. It was not so different from the kitchen, she realized. There were rules, stations, a chain of command. There were people who followed the rules and people who cut corners. And there were consequences for failure. The man you saw, Lucien said. You said his hands were clean. Yes. That suggests he is not a professional, a hired hand, someone brought in for a single job, which means he is local and inexperienced. Can you find him? If I know where to look. The uniform he was wearing, it had a logo on it. I did not get a good look, but it was red and white. Lucien pulled out his phone and started searching. Within minutes, he had a list of delivery companies that used red and white uniforms. There were 4 in the city. We can start there, she said. I will start there. You will stay here. Like hell. Fiona. I saw his face, Lucien. If we are going to find him, you need me. He looked like he wanted to argue, but finally he nodded. Tomorrow. I will take you with me tomorrow. But you will do exactly as I say. If I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. They spent the rest of the evening planning, going over details, and by the time she finally went up to bed, it was past midnight. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and wondered what the hell she was doing. This was insane. She was falling for a vampire king, helping him hunt down an arsonist, and sleeping in a Gothic mansion in the middle of nowhere. A week ago, her biggest concern had been perfecting her hollandaise sauce. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt exhilarated. The next morning, Lucien woke her before dawn. They drove back into the city, stopping at the first delivery company on the list. The building was a warehouse in Queens, trucks parked in neat rows, drivers loading packages for the day's routes. Lucien walked in like he owned the place and asked to speak to the manager. When the manager appeared, a harried woman in her 50s with a clipboard, he handed her a business card and said he was investigating a theft. I need to see your employee roster for the last 2 weeks, he said. I cannot just hand that over. Do you have a warrant? I do not need a warrant. The way he said it made the woman pale. She nodded and disappeared into the back office. Fiona watched the drivers trying to spot anyone who matched the man she had seen, but none of them did. The manager came back with a printout. Lucien scanned it, then shook his head. None of these are who I am looking for. They moved to the next company, then the next. By the third stop, Fiona's hope was starting to fade. The fourth company was in the Bronx, a smaller operation, only a dozen trucks. The manager was a young guy, early 20s, who looked nervous the moment Lucien walked in. I need your roster, Lucien said. Why? Because one of your employees may have been involved in a crime. The guy hesitated, then pulled up the roster on his computer. Fiona leaned over his shoulder, scanning the names, and then she saw it. A profile photo of a man with dark hair and a narrow face, the same man she had seen in the restaurant. Him, she said, pointing. That is him. The manager looked at the screen. Marcus Lyle. He only worked here for a week, quit 2 days ago. Do you have an address? Yeah, but I do not know if it is current. Give it to me. The manager printed it out and handed it over. Lucien took it without a word, and they left. In the car, Fiona felt her hands shaking. That was him, she said. I am sure of it. Good. Then we know who we are looking for. They drove to the address, an apartment building in a rundown neighborhood, and climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Lucien knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again, harder, and this time the door across the hall opened and an old woman peered out. He is gone, she said, left yesterday with all his stuff. Do you know where he went? Lucien asked. No idea. He kept to himself. Lucien thanked her and they went back to the car. Fiona felt her frustration rising. They had been so close. "What now?" she asked. "Now I make some calls. If he has left the city, I will find him. If he is still here, he's hiding. Either way, he cannot run forever." They drove back to the mansion, and Lucien disappeared into his study. Fiona wandered the house, too restless to sit still. She found herself in the library again, running her fingers along the spines of books that were older than her great-grandparents. She pulled one down, a collection of poetry in French, and tried to read, but the words would not stick. Lucien found her an hour later. "I have a lead." "What kind of lead?" "Someone saw him at a bar in Manhattan. He is spending money, which means he has been paid." "So we go to the bar." "No, I go to the bar. You stay here." Lucien. "Fiona, if Victor finds out you are with me, he will send someone. I cannot protect you and hunt Marcus at the same time." She wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. "Fine, but you have to promise me you will be careful." "I'm always careful." He kissed her, slow and deep, and then he was gone. She spent the rest of the day pacing, checking her phone, trying to distract herself. By the time evening came, she was ready to climb the walls. She made herself dinner in the enormous kitchen, chopping vegetables with a knife that was far too expensive for carrots, and tried not to think about what Lucien was doing. He came back just after midnight, and he was not alone. He had Marcus Lyle with him, hands bound, a gag over his mouth. The man's eyes were wide and terrified. Lucien dragged him into the library and shoved him into a chair. "Stay there," Lucien said. He pulled the gag down. Marcus started talking immediately, a flood of excuses and apologies and denials. Lucien let him talk for about 30 seconds, then raised a hand and the man went silent. "You were hired to start the fire," Lucien said. "No, do not lie to me. You stole a bottle from the wine cellar and started the fire to cover your tracks. Who hired you?" Marcus's eyes darted to Fiona, then back to Lucien. "I do not know what you are talking about." Lucien moved so fast Fiona did not see it. One moment he was standing across the room, the next he had Marcus by the throat, lifting him out of the chair. His eyes had gone red again, the fangs visible. "I will ask you one more time. Who hired you?" "Victor," Marcus choked out. "Victor Draven. He said it was just a job, just a fire. Nobody was supposed to get hurt." "Where is the bottle?" "I gave it to him. He has it." Lucien dropped him. Marcus collapsed onto the floor, gasping. Fiona felt sick, watching, but she did not look away. "You will testify," Lucien said. "You will tell the council what you just told me." "They will kill me." "They will kill you if you refuse. At least this way you have a chance." Marcus looked up at him, tears streaming down his face, and nodded. Lucien pulled out his phone and made a call. Within minutes, 2 other vampires arrived, pale and silent, and took Marcus away. Fiona did not ask where they were taking him. She did not want to know. When they were gone, Lucien turned to her. "Are you all right?" "I do not know. That was necessary." "I know. But it was still hard to watch." He crossed to her and pulled her into his arms. She let herself lean against him, feeling the cold solidity of his chest, the steady absence of a heartbeat. "It is almost over," he said. "The council meets tomorrow night. I will present Marcus's testimony and the stolen bottle. Victor will be stripped of his titles, and you will be safe. And then what?" "Then we decide what comes next, for us." She pulled back to look at him. "You really want this? Want me?" "More than I have wanted anything in 500 years. Even though I am human. Especially because you are human. You remind me what it is to be alive." She kissed him hard, and he kissed her back with the kind of hunger that made her forget everything else. They stumbled to the couch, his hands in her hair, her hands pulling at his shirt. She wanted him, all of him, and she did not care that it was reckless or impossible or insane. For the first time in her life, she was choosing something just because she wanted it, not because it was practical or safe or smart. They did not sleep together that night, not all the way, but they came close. He stopped when her breathing turned ragged, when she was trembling in his arms, and held her until she calmed. "Not yet," he said. "Not until you are ready. Not until you understand what it will mean." "I am ready." "You are not, but you will be." The next night, Lucien took her to the council meeting. It was held in a building beneath the city, accessed through a door in a subway tunnel that should not have existed. The council chamber was a cavernous stone room lit by candelabras, with a long table at the center and seats carved from black stone arranged in a semicircle. There were 13 vampires present, all of them ancient, all of them watching as Lucien walked in with Marcus Lyle in tow. Victor Draven was there too, standing near the far end of the table. He was tall and broad, with silver hair and a face that might have been handsome, if not for the cruelty in his eyes. He looked at Fiona, and something cold passed through his expression. "You brought a human," Victor said. "How quaint." "I brought a witness," Lucien said. He pushed Marcus forward. "Tell them what you told me." Marcus did. He explained how Victor had hired him, how he had stolen the bottle, how he had started the fire. He stammered and cried, but the story was consistent. When he finished, the room was silent. "This is absurd," Victor said. "The word of a criminal. Lucien has clearly coerced him." "I have the bottle," Lucien said. He pulled it from a case he had been carrying, a dark glass bottle with a wax seal. "Taken from Victor's estate last night. The seal matches the inventory records from the restaurant. He hired Marcus to steal it, then tried to frame me for the theft." Victor's expression darkened. "You broke into my estate?" "I enforced the law." "You have no authority." "I have every authority. You violated the blood-wine accords. You endangered human lives to cover your theft. You brought shame on this council." Lucien's voice was cold and final. "I call for your removal." The council conferred in whispers. Fiona stood near the edge of the room, her heart pounding. Victor was watching her, and the look in his eyes promised violence. She forced herself to meet his gaze, to not look away. Finally, the eldest of the council stood. "Victor Draven, the council finds you guilty of theft and endangerment. Your titles are revoked. Your territories are forfeit. You are hereby banished from this region. If you return, the sentence is death." Victor did not move. Then, slowly, he inclined his head. "So be it." He walked toward the exit, pausing when he reached Fiona. "Enjoy your victory, little human. It will not last." "Enough," Lucien said. He was at Fiona's side in an instant, his body between her and Victor. "Leave. Now." Victor smiled, cold and sharp, and then he was gone. The council dispersed, and Lucien took Fiona's hand, leading her out of the chamber and back through the tunnels to the surface. She did not speak until they were in the car, the city lights blurring past the windows. "Is it over?" she asked. "Yes." "You are sure?" "I'm sure. Victor is banished. He will not return, and even if he tried, the council would destroy him." She let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. "Thank you." "You do not need to thank me." "I do, though. You saved my life. Twice now." He glanced at her, his expression softening. "And I would do it 100 times more." They drove back to the mansion in silence. When they arrived, Fiona realized she did not want to leave. She did not want to go back to her apartment, to her old life. She wanted to stay here, with him, in this strange, impossible world he had shown her. "I want to stay," she said. "You can, for as long as you like." "No, I mean I want to stay, forever, if you will have me." He stopped walking and turned to face her, his eyes wide. "Fiona, I know what I am asking. I know it means becoming like you, but I do not care. I love you, Lucien. I have loved you since the moment you carried me out of that fire, and I do not want to lose you. I do not want to grow old while you stay the same. I want to be with you, forever." He cupped her face in his hands, his touch cold and gentle. "Are you certain?" "I am certain. It will hurt, the turning, and there is no going back. I know. And you still want this?" "I still want this." He kissed her deep and desperate, and then he pulled back. "Not tonight. Tonight you rest. Tomorrow we will begin." She nodded. They went inside, and she let him lead her upstairs, and for the first time since the fire, she slept soundly, dreamlessly. The next morning, Lucien explained the process. The turning would take 3 days. He would give her his blood, a little at a time, until her body began to change. It would be painful. She would feel like she was dying, but he would be with her every moment, and when it was over, she would be like him, immortal, strong, free. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I am ready." He bit his own wrist and held it to her lips. She drank. The taste was strange, metallic, and sweet, and almost immediately she felt heat spread through her body. He pulled his wrist away and kissed her forehead. "Rest now. It will begin soon." It did. By evening she was feverish, her skin burning, her body aching. Lucien stayed with her, holding her hand, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. She drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of his presence and the fire in her veins. The second day was worse. She felt like her bones were breaking and reforming, her muscles tearing and rebuilding. She screamed and Lucien held her, murmuring words she did not understand in a language older than English. She clung to him and tried to breathe through the pain. The third day the pain began to fade. In its place came clarity. She could hear things she had never heard before, the rustle of leaves outside, the creak of the house settling, Lucien's breathing even though he did not need to breathe. She could smell everything, the wood and the dust and the faint scent of blood from the kitchen downstairs where he kept his supply. She opened her eyes and the world was sharper, brighter, more alive. Lucien was sitting beside her, watching. "How do you feel?" "Different, good, hungry." "I know, come." He led her downstairs to the kitchen and poured her a glass of blood from a crystal decanter. She drank and it was the best thing she had ever tasted, better than any dish she had ever made, better than anything she had ever imagined. She finished the glass and he poured her another. "Easy," he said. "Too much too fast will make you sick." She nodded and sipped more slowly. When she had finished, he took her to the mirror in the hallway. She stared at her reflection. Her skin was paler, almost white, and her hair had lightened to a silvery blonde. Her eyes were the same but sharper, the pupils wider. She looked like herself, and like someone else, all at once. "I am beautiful," she said, surprised. "You were always beautiful. Now you are eternal." She turned to him and kissed him, tasting blood and joy and the promise of forever. They spent the next weeks learning each other. He taught her to hunt, to move with the silence and speed of a predator. She taught him to cook, not that he could eat the food, but he liked to watch her work, liked the way she moved through the kitchen with the same grace she now moved through the world. They explored the city at night, walking through neighborhoods she had never felt safe in before, and she reveled in the feeling of power, of invincibility. The restaurant owners called. They had found a new location, a better location, and they wanted her to be head chef. She said yes. Lucien helped her design the kitchen, pulling strings she did not ask about to get the best equipment, the best staff. They opened 6 months after the fire, a soft opening for friends and family. And Lucien sat at the pass just like he used to, watching her work. She made him the best meal she could, even though he could not eat it, and plated it with the kind of care she used to reserve for critics. When service was over, she came out to sit with him, and he took her hand. "This is everything I dreamed of," she said. "You deserve it. I deserve you. You have me. Forever." She leaned over and kissed him, not caring who saw, not caring about anything except the fact that she was here, alive, immortal, in love. The kitchen was hers. The night was hers. He was hers. A year later, she opened a second location. 5 years later, a third. Her reputation grew, whispered about in culinary circles, the chef who never aged, who only worked nights, whose food was unlike anything anyone had ever tasted. Lucien stayed at her side, her partner in everything, and slowly she built an empire. They traveled. They saw the world. They returned to the mansion between trips and filled it with laughter and love, and the kind of quiet contentment she had never believed was possible. She met the other vampires in Lucien's territory, learned their names and their histories, and became part of the world she had stumbled into. The council met every decade to discuss policy and disputes. Fiona attended with Lucien, sitting at his right hand, and though some of the older vampires looked at her with skepticism, she earned their respect. She was sharp, practical, unafraid to speak her mind. She reminded them that they existed in a world with humans, that their survival depended on coexistence, not domination. Victor never returned. Never. Rumor had it he had gone east, to territories where the old laws were less strictly enforced. Fiona did not waste time thinking about him. Her life was too full, too bright, too perfect to dwell on the past. 20 years after the fire, the detective who had investigated the case retired. Fiona sent him a bottle of wine, a thank you for his help, and he wrote back saying he had always wondered what happened to her, the line cook who had survived. She wrote back saying she had found her path, that she was happy, and left it at that. 50 years after the fire, her old sous chef passed away. Fiona went to the funeral standing at the back in a black dress and a wide-brimmed hat to shield her from the late afternoon sun. She did not speak to anyone. She just wanted to say goodbye. Lucien found her afterward, waiting by the car. "Are you all right?" "I am. It is strange, though, watching people age, watching them die." "I know. Does it ever get easier?" "No, but it becomes part of the rhythm. Life and death, over and over. We endure." She took his hand. "As long as I have you, I can endure anything." 100 years after the fire, the city had changed almost beyond recognition. The restaurant where she had worked was now a high-rise. The mansion was still standing, protected by laws and money and the kind of influence that came with centuries of existence. Fiona's restaurants were legendary, passed down through generations of chefs who trained under her, who learned her techniques and her philosophy. She no longer cooked every night, but she still visited, still tasted every dish, still held her staff to the impossible standards that had made her name. Lucien threw her a party for her 120th birthday, inviting vampires from across the continent. They filled the mansion, drinking and dancing and celebrating the woman who had gone from human to queen in the span of a heartbeat. She stood in the center of it all, Lucien's arm around her waist, and felt the weight of a century of love and life and joy. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For carrying me out of that fire, for never letting go." He kissed her temple. "I will never let go." And he did not. They lived and loved and built a life that spanned centuries. And when Fiona thought back to that night, the smoke and the flames and the moment she thought she was going to die, she felt only gratitude. Because that fire had brought her to him. That fire had given her everything. Decades turned into centuries. Fashions changed, technology evolved, the world spun on. Fiona adapted. She opened restaurants on every continent, trained thousands of chefs, wrote cookbooks that became classics. She funded culinary schools, scholarships, programs for young cooks who dreamed of something more. She became a legend, whispered about in the same breath as Escoffier and Child, a name that meant excellence and innovation, and a kind of magic that could not be taught. And through it all, Lucien was there, her anchor, her partner, the love of her impossibly long life. 300 years after the fire, they stood on the balcony of the mansion, watching the sunset. The world was so different now, flying cars and virtual reality and technology that would have seemed like sorcery to the people of Lucien's youth. But some things did not change. The way he looked at her, the way she fit against his side, the certainty that this, them, was forever. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Becoming this?" "Never. Not even a little. Not even a little." She turned to face him. "You gave me eternity. You gave me a life beyond anything I could have imagined. How could I regret that?" He smiled, rare and beautiful. "I love you. I love you too." They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that reminded her of that first fire, the one that had changed everything. And as the stars began to appear, one by one, Fiona thought about all the nights ahead of them, all the years and decades and centuries still to come. Forever, she thought. And it was enough.